Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk Kids Health Facebook Live Show, episode 25. I'm Dr. Narissa Bauer, your host. I'm a behavioral pediatrician and blogger of Let's Talk Kids Health. As you know, the concept of this show is to share information about behavioral health, parenting, and family wellness. Each week, I plan to bring you topics and guests to help me advance this mission so that we can all talk together. Now remember, if you're watching this live, you'll have the opportunity to post comments and ask questions of my guest. Let us know that you're here by dropping a comment, giving us a like, and using hashtag live. The replay will be immediately available when we end the broadcast. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, hey, so-and-so would really benefit, please share. Sharing is caring, as you know. And if you don't want to miss future episodes or maybe check out some of the past ones, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Narissa Bauer, MD, and follow my blog Facebook page, Let's Talk Kids Health. Okay, so now on to this week's guest. Let's welcome Dr. Tracey Agnese. Dr. Agnese is both a pediatrician and a mom. She has been taking care of kids in New York City for over 10 years. She knows how difficult it is to have and care for a newborn baby. She also knows that new moms often neglect taking care of themselves and wants to help change that. Dr. Agnese provides online educational resources for new moms to simplify newborn baby care and help decrease the overwhelm, anxiety, and that mom guilt that is so common after having a baby. I am so excited to have you, Dr. Tracey.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and this is such an important topic. If you don't mind just letting us know, how did you get into this? I mean, you're a general pediatrician and you cover a lot of different things, but this particular niche.
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I guess it all started after I had my first baby. I have two girls. And so after I had my first, I'm a pediatrician and I didn't really think much about preparing for having a baby. I think I just thought I'm a pediatrician. I take care of kids all day. I've got this. And I had a baby and I was really shocked by how hard it was to have a newborn baby and how hard it was to take care of the baby and also take care of yourself. It's just stuff they don't teach you in medical school. And I felt myself even Googling, in the middle of the night, questions that I was like, how do I not know this? I'm a pediatrician. But, it's not the medical stuff. It's just the caring of a newborn that was very overwhelming. There's a lot of different answers, who to listen to, and you're sleep deprived, you're tired, and then I didn't even realize about taking care of myself until much later when I realized I wasn't taking care of myself at all, and that's probably part of what some of the problems were, right? So I had my baby, and then about 8 months after I had my daughter, my sister, who I'm super close with, was living on the other side of the country. It was the first time we've ever lived apart. We had lived together, and it was the first time we ever lived apart. And she had a baby about 8 months after I had mine, her first baby. So I thought to myself, I had all these grand plans, and I was going to write her letters. I was like, each, week or month of the baby's life in the beginning, how to take care of herself as my sister, and also how to take care of her baby as a new mom and a pediatrician. And so I figured I would write her these letters, and I never did it, of course. I was like, I could write these letters and then make it into a book one day, but I never did it. So then fast forward to COVID, so about a year and a half ago, and I'm a general pediatrician in New York City, and a year and a half ago at this time, the newborn babies were really the only people coming into the office for a little while there when it was just slow and nobody was going anywhere. And so, new moms in my office are often tearful and overwhelmed, and that's not uncommon, but it definitely was more intense, around COVID, and they just felt extra isolated, extra alone, extra unsupported. So and then I had a little more time on my hands too, because it was just so slow. So I started to explore the online world, and so I did a little bit of a virtual support group for some patients in my practice, and then I started to really go into more of the online social media, and that's where and that's kind of how it started.
Wow. And it's interesting. I think your story is similar to mine in the fact that, when I brought home my son, my newborn, 14 years ago, I was like, oh, this should be fine. But I remember coming home and I think he sneezed or something. And then all of a sudden I just started crying. And I was like, and my mom's like, what's happening? And I was like, I don't know. So, right? I mean,
it's hard. It's so much harder. And the hormones and the overwhelm and it's hard,
Yes.
It's hard. hard. You question
breastfeeding, you're like,
yeah.
it should be natural, but it feels so like, how am I holding?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you could read all the books in the world, but until you do it, you don't really know, some of these things, or even know what you don't know until you're in it.
So right. So I'm so happy that you're doing this work, and I know that you are so passionate. I think the first time I met you, we were talking about this, and I was just so taken with just the energy and the passion that you have for this. So I'm really excited to just jump right in, and I know that you were going to talk about what is the fourth trimester and why is that important?
Sure, yeah, great question. And, I did watch, I know you had a great fourth trimester episode already, so I'm not going to repeat it. It was with a pediatrician. It was really great. So people could go back and watch that next.
Yes.
It was really good. So I'm not going to repeat all that because you guys did a great job of explaining it. But in summary, the fourth trimester is like the first 3 months after having a baby. And it refers to the baby's life and adjusting to the life outside the womb. And it also refers to the mom and her adjustment, as a new mom. And so it's that 3 months after a baby's born is the fourth trimester. So an extension of, the pregnancy, basically the baby's still adjusting and learning to the world, And I think it's important, especially in the context of what we're going to talk about, in our culture of the United States, and because our culture here in the U.S. is so focused on pregnancy and the pregnant woman, and we really we revere pregnancy, and we think it's wonderful, and and it is. I mean, it's amazing, and we literally shower the mom with gifts, and we prepare the nursery, and we do all these birthing courses. People hold doors for you. They give up their seats on the subway. They're asking how you're doing all the time, and then when you have the baby, it just suddenly changes, and the mom becomes like chopped liver, and people literally stop doing all those things. They stop asking about her, and they ask about the baby, and visitors become about the baby, and people stop holding the doors and doing all the things. And not only that, but here in the U.S., we actually start expecting so much more of the new mom from the very beginning. I mean, pre-pandemic times, and I don't even know what's happening now, but moms are expected to be able to maybe entertain and have visitors in the hospital before they even go home, and then have visitors over when they're home and have a clean house, and maybe even give food to these visitors that are coming to visit their baby, and never mind, do all the other household chores and maybe go back to work immediately and take care of other children. So we just, and then we expect her body to just bounce back pretty quickly, and we expect her to be, all the things. So I just think there's a lot of pressure on new moms and not enough, respect for this time period. And so I've started to become fascinated with that and the importance of it.
Yeah. And, I think some of the work that you've done on your YouTube channel is sort of looking at across cultures. So let's talk about that. Yeah. I'm curious, how does the U.S. care for postpartum women versus other countries? I mean, what have you learned in your, as you've been doing these interviews?
Yeah, so I've been fascinated. So I've interviewed a lot of women from different cultures, and I found out so many things. And I guess we'll start with, how the U.S. compares to other countries is not very good at all. So when you look at, it's not good. So the numbers you look at really about maternal mortality rate, and that's the death rate the number per 100,000 live births in pregnancy and delivery and after delivery. It could be 42 days afterwards for certain of these numbers for the maternal mortality rate. So when you look at all the developed countries, the U.S. has the highest maternal mortality rate. So our number is 17-ish around the last time I checked. When you look at Norway, Finland, Sweden, they're like 3, 4, 2-ish around there. So we have a really bad maternal mortality rate, and a lot of this is stuff that's preventable, and also a lot of it occurs post-birth. So, and there's a lot of reasons I could certainly go into, I think why these numbers are the way they are, but there's a lot of room for change in the United States with that. And then also different cultures around the world, how they treat postpartum women is, it's really fascinating. There actually was a study and a paper done on it, looking at it, and they found common themes around different cultures as to how they treat the postpartum. And there was, I guess 5 different kind of things that they all really did very different than what we do here. I think the biggest one is that they really just allow the mom to sleep and recover and breastfeed if she wants to, and they don't expect her to do other things. And a lot of these other cultures have systems in place where the community is expected to raise the baby and not just, the mom or the mom and her partner if she has one. And so there's just so much around that is so interesting and fascinating, and I just love.
Yeah. I mean, and especially I can imagine, during this past year with COVID and where we have to socially distance in our society, that just made it even worse.
So much worse. Exactly. Yeah. And I think, like when you look at the US, I think there's a few big things that we do very differently than the other countries as far as our maternal care. One is a shortage of providers. So that's like OBGYNs and midwives. In other developed countries, their rate of providers to births is so much higher, 2 to 6 times more than what we have here. So they have a lot more people per taking care of, and there's just more of that attention, Another thing that a lot of the other developed countries with better numbers than us do is that they guarantee access to in-home postpartum visits, which is amazing. We certainly don't do that here. We expect the mom to just go out and about and go to her pediatrician, a day after she goes home. So these home visits, they address not only mom's physical and mental and emotional and breastfeeding and her food and her housing situation and her support, and she's not having to leave. And they also address the baby, So I think that's a key thing that we are missing. And also the US doesn't have guaranteed paid parental leave in the postpartum period, whereas these other countries, they do, right? So all the other countries besides the US had at least 14 weeks of paid leave, and a lot of them so much more, And in the US, we, if people are eligible for FMLA, they get up to 12 weeks, but that's only, I think it's 60% of people maybe are eligible. There's a large number of people who aren't even, and it's each state has different, policies. And so we just have so much room to grow in our care of postpartum women.
Oh, for sure. And I think too, there's such a stark difference between mom's ability to stay home after the baby and dad's even, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was Sweden. Sweden is like the prototype of a very good parental, leave. And I think it was them. I can tell you if I was wrong on that country, but where they gave paid partner leave as well, and it wasn't even necessarily that the partners took as many days as it was the ability to have the partner take days to cover, when needed, that really improved mom's overall physical and mental health.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess is there anything that we can learn from
so much? Yeah. We could learn so much. And I think the biggest thing that we can learn is just being, allowing mom to do the things that she needs to do, which is sleep and, recover and feed the baby. And so having systems in place and people to support the mom in this is really key. And most of these cultures have a defined time period. Usually it's around a month, 30, maybe 40 days, where they, name the period and they really protect the mom during this period. And China is amazing in one of the countries that has a lot of traditions around this. They call it sitting the month, or the confinement period, where mom has to really do nothing but rest and recover. And there's certain foods that she is allowed to eat and not allowed to eat, and the foods are supposed to that she is allowed to eat are to promote her healing, because they have the yin and the yang, and they want to give her foods that promote the healing because she had lost from delivery. So and really around a lot of these cultures, they have something very similar, and they have different foods. Even I think one of the African tribes that I talked to a woman about, they had this very particular food, like oatmeal, I forget the name of it, where they, and it was just like stuff that has warmth and, nourishing the mom so that she can be nourishing the baby, It's just so cool. And they have a lot of traditions too. A lot of cultures have different traditions around really identifying it as a special time for the mom, and taking care of her. Some involve massages or jewels or, things to really like, to make it special.
Yeah, I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but it just makes me curious. Like in other countries, do you happen to know what the rates of postpartum depression is compared to the U.S.?
It's such a good question and really nuanced and hard to answer.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of these countries and cultures, one of the things that maybe they're not as good at as we are in the U.S. is accepting and identifying mental health disorders. I mean, we have a long way to go on that too. But a lot of cultures, it's just not talked about as much, and so to identify it in relation to it is just it's hard to kind of standardize and to be able to give an answer to. And not all of these traditions are necessarily amazing and great, right? And I have heard, especially like when we talk about the Chinese tradition and how there is a lot of kind of rules and regulations, and certain, especially like Chinese Americans, maybe take some of them and not take all of them, and kind of make it work for themselves. But, where if you have a mother, and a lot of these also have a mother figure, whether that's the mom's mom or the dad's mom or some auntie or somebody come into the home to take care of the mom, and so depending on maybe that your relationship with that person, that might not be for every single person a good for your mental health, so there's a lot of things that go into it, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, it's just one of those transition times where I think not only do we have all the interplay of hormones and then lack of sleep and just trying to adjust to that new role, it's a really trying time for so many new moms who, unfortunately our society, like I think we're getting better about it, but we have this perception that we have to be super moms and, do it all.
Absolutely.
And when we don't meet that expectation, it can really be hard. We put that pressure on ourselves too.
So much. And I think one of the things too that I think that the U.S. actually does a really good job at in the postpartum time, after talking to a lot of women, is involving the partner earlier on than other cultures and countries. I think maybe because of that the mom really is a little extra isolated and might not have her whole family living nearby, or, she might need to go back to work really soon. I think for a lot of reasons, the partners tend to get involved a lot earlier than maybe some other places, which I think is really nice, and it's something that I like to see that we do really well.
Yeah. Well, so I have, the next question is like, what is a postpartum plan and why is that important?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So postpartum plan is something that I think it's like a new thing of people talking about. I think, people really talk a lot about the birth plan, and a birth plan is important and great, and education around the birth of the baby is important. But, the birth of the baby is about a day, and then you go home and you have the baby to take care of, and so be planning for that time when you go home with the baby is really important. And because, I think a lot of moms, while they're pregnant, have more time on their hands to maybe think about all the different things and have and can kind of set some stuff up in place. And so they can kind of identify things about themselves that like examine their own needs and what's important to them, because it's not going to be the same for every person, identify what their social support network is, and then also for their own, physical and health and mental health, what are their networks and who could they reach out to, and kind of have a plan for all that stuff. So I think it's really important. So I actually started creating, my own kind of way to work through that. So I am going to have some, upcoming free workshops for pregnant or moms or expecting first or second time moms to kind of go through this whole plan and what kinds of things you can do, beforehand to kind of set yourself up for the baby. And I think the biggest thing is to just for, moms to even just have some time to really be convinced that taking care of themselves is a priority, and that's important. In pediatrics, we always say healthy mom, healthy baby. You really can't have a healthy baby unless you have a healthy mom. So it's not selfish or bad to be taking care of yourself. It's actually the opposite. It's really important, So just kind of setting that mindset from pregnancy, I think is great.
Yeah, and as you were describing that postpartum plan, I'm going to ask you, like, when do you see this fitting in? Like, could this fit into a pediatric practice, or is it something that's separate from that?
A postpartum plan? Well, yeah. I think it could certainly, like, I guess it's more of like the maybe OB side of it, like, unless it's their second or third kid, which I think sometimes happens, is that you don't really realize how important it is until after you had one child and you realize, wait a minute, I need to do things a little differently next time from the beginning, especially because then you have a second, older sibling around to take care of as well. So I think that's when it might really be more when people start thinking about it, is when then they realize, well, who's going to take care of the baby when I go to the hospital to have this second baby or third baby. So I think they're more, second and third time moms are maybe even more aware earlier on how important it is to have support.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. And I think, it's something that, we kind of think about maybe in passing when we're, about that, but it's nice to have, like, actually have a game plan, and talk through that. So I'm really excited to hear about your, like you said, you were going to be doing some upcoming workshops on that?
Yeah. I'll have the link in your notes, and anybody can always just email me too. I can give you that too. But Tracey@TraceyMD.com, TRACEY@TRACEY.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah,
because it's great. And I think my biggest tip would be, and I always love to tell any expecting parents to do this, is if you cook, or however you feed yourself while you're pregnant at the end there in the third trimester, every time, or just even a few times a week, make a little extra, put it in the freezer, of a meal, and this way you'll have some easy things you can just pop out, in those first few weeks, when the last thing you want to do is make yourself a nice homemade meal,
That's a great tip. Yeah. I don't think that's awesome.
Yeah, even if it's like you're just chopping veggies and you want to put a little extra in the freezer so you can take them out, cut ready, freshly chopped veggies for when you need them, that little bit can really go a long way in those first 2 weeks.
For sure. Well, it looks like we had one comment here, and it was just a hello from Dr. Una saying hello, which is always fun to see. Thank you for watching. So, I think this is really valuable work that you're doing, kind of bringing light to the fact that we need to give moms permission to take care of themselves and to think about selfishly what they need right after that, in that postpartum period, and not to be afraid to ask for help. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. In terms of saying, I need just some time to take a shower, or or whatever it is, right, that they need. And so I guess what message would you have for any moms to be, or new moms that are out there that might be struggling, or might be thinking like, gosh, I wish I had known about this, or given this more thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is hard to ask for help, but I'm not someone who usually asks for help, and I think that's something I was really shocked by, in those first few months, is how much I needed to, ask for help, or just a reprieve, or anything, and that's okay. And not only okay, it's actually when you don't ask for help that you need, and don't identify, that it gets bad for you and the baby. So we are not meant to do this alone, I guess, is what I would say to them, is that we just are not. And I think, if anything, the pandemic has shown us over the last year and a half is that we are not meant to raise babies and children and families alone. And it's not good for anybody to try to do that, and that your support can look different depending on who you are and where you are, and, what your socioeconomic status is, and your family status, and all the different things, but and a lot of people, when I have this conversation about support, I think most people's reaction is just, well, I have no support, or I can't do that, or I don't have people that would help, or oh, it's a pandemic and people can't help me. But there are always ways that you can get support. And even if it's just, a virtual mom group, or if it's putting the baby down in a safe place and walking away for 10 minutes and calling a friend who makes you laugh, or, whatever it is, it can look different at different ages of the baby, different stages and different, times of life. But there is always a way to find support and seek help from someone, having a grandparent FaceTime with an older kid, should babysit, during the bad times is what I suggested a lot, or whatever it is. There's, even if you live far away from everybody, people can, send you gift cards for your restaurants you like, or, send meals to your home, there's always ways. So just be creative. And if you can't think of any ways, then talk to somebody and ask them to help, give you ways.
Yeah.
There's always a way you can be supported.
Yeah, and I guess, could you tell us just a little bit more about, I know that during COVID you had mentioned you had started just offering virtual support groups. I mean, what were moms' reception to that? I mean, were they open to that?
They loved it. Oh yeah, they loved it. It was great. Yeah, they loved to have a forum to just talk to, because they, moms really miss those mommy and me classes that a lot of people, you're pregnant and you have these visions of what you're going to do with your baby. And I think a lot of, it involves that sort of bonding with other new moms. And so that was just kind of taken away abruptly from everybody. And that was a big part of it that they really did miss. So it was nice even, on Zoom to be able to do that and just know that, know that they're not alone. I think that was the biggest part of it, was that them realizing, that they're not alone in how they were feeling.
Yeah. Well, I think if anything, anybody watching this, I love just the fact that you're a pediatrician. You're so enthusiastic and passionate about this. I think I want to just point that out, that it's not just OB-GYNs that provide this support, it's pediatricians as well. We are here for moms. We want to be here for moms, and the whole family, right? I mean, that's
absolutely. And we're the ones, that's the thing, as far as, postpartum care in the US, the OB-GYNs, most of the time after they deliver the baby, aren't seeing the mom until that 6-week checkup,
Right.
And we're seeing the moms, how many times? So many times in those first 6 weeks, right? Like a few days after birth, and usually 2 weeks, and if not more times in between, and then the 1 month and the 6 week. And so we're doing, I think most people do the, depression screening, which we do at those visits in the beginning. And we're establishing a relationship with the mom, because obviously we're not sitting there talking to the baby when they're newborn. It's really the parents that we're talking to and really getting that relationship with. So yeah, it is, I think, important for us to take ownership of that and be able to try to change postpartum care for these new moms, because we're really, in it.
Yeah. Well, if anybody watching this wants to get a hold of you, or is like, hey, I need to learn more about what she's doing, can you just kind of share where to find you?
Sure. On social media, across all the social medias, I am Baby Doc Mama, most prominent on Instagram, and on YouTube, I'm also Baby Doc Mama. And then you can go to my website, traceymd.com, with an E, TRACEYMD.com. And I'm up to a lot of exciting new stuff coming up in the next month or so. So I'll have all of my updates on there as I am rolling out all my new things that I'm excited about.
Yes, well, we will stay tuned.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, this has been a pleasure chatting with you, Dr. Tracey. And as always, I just, keep doing what you're doing. You have so many gifts to share, and your enthusiasm just shows. So I love it. And just to announce, my next week's special guest is Dr. Gabriela Rodriguez, who will be talking to us about parenting young children. And so if you have any other suggestions for any topics or guests, please feel free to reach out to me at drnarissa@letstalkkidshealth.com. Drop me a comment below, or just message me all over on any social media platform. And remember, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, Narissa Bauer MD, to be alerted live each week, or follow my blog Facebook page. So that's it for this week. Thank you so much again for watching, and we'll see you soon.